Hey FlossTube, Suzette, also known as Primitive Stitcher, here on FlossTube. It's been a minute or two. Thank you for everyone who has checked in with me to see if I'm okay and how I'm doing. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming back. I think my last video was mid-May, where I did the first part of my Stitch Maynia update. So this is the final installment of my Stitch Maynia update. I have been doing some other stitching, but I will leave that for the next video because I don't want to make this too terribly long. I will explain, I'm in a new location, and I will explain all that at the end of the video, as well as give kind of a life update at the end of the video, just in case you're only here to see the stitching and you don't want to hear all that extra stuff. So, as I mentioned in my last video, May was a crazy busy month, but I did manage to put a few stitches in on the rest of the pieces that I had prepared for Stitch Maynia. Before we get into that though, I do have a finish, a Maynia finish, not a 2019 Maynia finish, but a 2018 Maynia finish. This was a gift from Trisha at 3L Threads, and it is a Mill Hill kit called Fireflies. And that is the photo from the kit. And I ended up finishing it last week, actually. There it is in all its glory. I put a hanger on it. I may clip that off and just turn it into a magnet. I haven't really decided fully yet. But it was a fun little stitch. I don't know what took me so long to finish it, other than I had other things on my agenda, and I decided that I would pull it out. And I actually did most of the stitching and beading while I was on the phone with my middle child, who is living on the East Coast. When she calls, I like to be doing something with my hands, and this was a quiet option. So there you go. I just covered the back with some scrapbook paper, and I'm happy to have that finished. One more, hopefully, open slot in my Maynia for next year. Okay, so what I did accomplish in the second half of May, if you recall, possibly, I was doing a Stacy Nash Maynia this year, and next up on the list was Love, Pin, Keep, and Heart. That will look something like this when complete. And I am stitching this on a 32 count. And this is how far I managed to get. It really shouldn't take very long once I get back to it. I'm very pleased with how far I did get. And I think these are pretty much in order that I did them. There might be a few off here and there, but for the most part, I think it is how I pulled them out of the bag. Grace Bridges sampler. I've always loved this one and had this one in my collection for quite a while. And this one is being stitched on 35 count parchment. And I managed to get quite a bit of the top border done. I'm cutting it very close, but I want to frame this close, so hopefully I'll be able to manage that. Try to keep these with their project bags so it's not so much trouble putting them away. This one, I loved working on this one. Buttermilk and Blue Sampler Sewing Bag. and I'm stitching this on 30 count parchment with the week's wool threads. And I managed to get quite a bit done on this one too. This might have been on a weekend where I was only working on one piece for the entirety of the weekend. I am anxious to get back to this one. The wools are very nice to work with. Then next up would be the Yellow Daisy Sewing Book. Cute little book. I think I'll use it as like a little needle case. And this one I am stitching on a 28 count linen, and I have threads hanging. I should have brought something down. Hold up a sec. And this, again, another one that will take just a short time to finish. The stitching portion of it anyway. When I have some free time. Another big one, Christmas at Hollyberry Farm. This is a popular one of Stacy's. Love that white house. And this one I am stitching on a 36 count mink with the call for Gentle Arts threads and just a tiny little start on this big giant piece. That border is going to take a while, I think. I think when I do get back to this, I will stitch a little bit on the border and then move on to the inner part of the design and switch back and forth so the border isn't so daunting all at once. Okay, this is a tiny little start on Midnight in the Strawberry Garden. It's a threadboard and pin keep, and will look something like this when complete. I am stitching this one on 32 count charcoal. It calls for something else, but I'm doing the charcoal, and just a tiny little key up in the corner. Clearly something crazy was going on that day, and that's all I managed to get done. But it's a start, right? Okay, that's pile one. Let me see. Move some pile number 2 over. The next day I started on Simple Pleasures sewing pouch, which will look something like this when complete. I'm really looking forward to stitching up some of these little pouches like this. I have a couple of these types in this collection of goodness. And I think I am stitching this on the called for, which is 32 count parchment. And I got the top border done. I love the little pennies. They were fun to stitch too. And we have another house. Thought I had all these pulled out. I'm so sorry. This is what it snowed in pin keep, and I'm doing this one first, and I'm stitching this on the 40 count Confederate gray that it calls for, and not a very big start on this one either, but a start nonetheless. I doubt that I'll have it done by this Christmas, but you never know. Then I will have Mary Bear's Sampler. This is another popular one of Stacy's. And this one, the called for is 36 count parchment, which is, yes, what I'm using. And again, just a small start on the border on this one. But I have discovered that I don't like leaving the border to the last, and I don't like doing the entire border first. So again, I will do some border and then do some of the motifs inside and then switch back to the border so that I don't get bored with the border stitching. And I have a little tangle here. Okay. Next I have what? 4 and 20 Blackbirds pocket roll. And this is called for 32 count R&R dye pot linen, which I did not have, but I am using some linen that I dyed myself, and that is as far as I got. Looking forward to getting back to that one as well. Another sewing bag or sewing pouch. This one's called the Schoolgirl Sewing Pouch, and it comes from the book From Me to Thee, and it happens to be the cover photo. I'm not using the colors that are called for. I decided to use kind of an orangey red instead of the brown. And I believe this is a 32 count linen, and I just got a tiny little start on that one. But it'll be nice that it's there and it's ready when I'm ready to get back to it. Next in line was another large one, Summer at Hollyberry Farm. Another big white house. And this one is being stitched on the call for the 35 count R&R Old Mill Java. And just a tiny, tiny start on that giant border. So I try to have a good mix of large and small. There aren't too many medium-sized ones in here. And the last one that I worked on is called Berry Basket Tray, and will look something like this when complete. And this is just on a 32 count linen in the raw natural color. And I made a decent start on this one with getting the border or the outer border in and a start on the bunting. So that is it. That was in total I had 27 Maynia starts, two Maynia finishes in the beginning of the month. So I've added 25 new starts to my list of things, which is okay. I'm okay with that. I like having things started, and that way it can give me plenty to choose from when I want to stitch. I'm going to show you a couple of things that that were purchased for me. I do have haul, but I will show that in the next video. I have been making several purchases, more adding to the collection than finishing. So if you have watched me for a while, you know my love for vintage and antique sewing boxes, and I think that will always be a passion of mine, because not only do I cross stitch, I do other types of stitching. I sew, I do a little bit of knitting, a tiny bit of crochet. So there's always a need for new sewing boxes. And my son so sweetly purchased this one for me. It needs a good cleaning and re-waxing, but the lids lift up, and it has like a bobbin nest in there, but it's just beautiful. The top, I mean, it's had, you know, it's been used, it's been loved, and I love that. I love it that it has the wear on it. It doesn't have any type of maker's mark on it. I don't know if it was handmade or if it was mass-produced, but I love it. I am not going to do anything to it other than clean it and wax it, and I will show you the wax that I use. It's similar to brie wax, but I purchased it from an antique dealer in Germany when I lived there, and purchased some pieces, and that's what he recommended, and it's lasted for a very long time. Next up is another small wooden one, an unusual shape to me, in pretty good condition, and it opens up. Oh, there's my wax on either side, and it also has the spool nest there on the side. I just thought it was unusual in comparison to anything else that I had seen before, and needed to be added to my collection. So this is the wax that I use. It's very smelly, just like the brie wax is, and you apply it the same. And this one, I'm not going to take the lid off. You can kind of see it's dark brown, but it's nice, and it gives the wood pieces a very nice protection. So that's a project for another day. So that's all my stitching related things this time around. Where have I been? Well, I've been here. I had hoped that this summer would be a really relaxing summer and a time for loads and loads of stitching and crafting and making all kinds of fun things. I have been doing a little bit of that, but after my last video, my son decided that he did not want to renew the lease on his apartment and could not find anything that he thought was in his price range and met his expectations in the time that he had to find a new place. So we decided that he would move back in with me, which meant I had to clear out my craft room and make space for him, which I'm happy to do. If I had things the way that I would prefer them, I would live in a giant house, and all three of my children and my son-in-law and my grandson and I would all live in the same house like they used to years and years ago. And in some countries they still follow that, but sadly not here in the United States. I was never one of those moms who said I can't wait for my kids to turn 18 and move out of the house. I would love for us all to live together and have our own little wings of the house. But anyway, so when he made that decision, or we made that decision together, that would be the best option for him right now. It took quite a bit of doing. We had to pack him up out of his apartment, clean that apartment, move him, well, before we could move him into my house, because I love my tiny house, but I had to move everything out of my craft room and find a place for that. So here I am down in my basement. I love this space, but it, as you can tell, I have a lot of stuff. I don't know if you can see back there, but I have a lot of stuff between my, well, my cross-stitch stuff is still upstairs, but all my paper crafting is down here, and part of my sewing is down here. Part of my sewing is still upstairs. But paper crafting and my other craft stuff is down here. So when you live alone and then someone else moves in with you, and it's going to be more than just a temporary thing, you have to make space in every room in the house. I mean, you know, because they have their stuff that they're bringing in, and you have to make space for that, whether it's in the bathroom medicine closet or wherever. It's been a big job. And I feel like we are finally mostly settled. So there was that, and during all that time we had some plumbing issues. A pipe from my kitchen sink broke. That's a nightmare. And so trying to get that taken care of, discovering that it had broken, I mean, because it broke and I didn't know about it, and where's this water coming from? Which was down here in the basement on the other side. I'm like, where is that coming from? Because we'd had a lot of rain too. So I thought, it's leaking in from the rain, and then the rain stopped and the water kept coming. So finally got that figured out. And yeah, just crazy. I also, what else did I do? Oh, I bought a new car. And I like to do a lot of research before I buy anything major like that. So that took some time. And then just, you know, making that, it's a big commitment to me. So going, and even though you know what you want and you go test drive what you want and you know that you want it, that whole process of finalizing it is just like almost an all-day thing here. So anyway, hopefully I will be back on track. Classes start back on August 15th. I have several work days prior to that. Thankfully, they're not necessarily full days. So, getting back in the groove of things. and I'm actually kind of looking forward to the fall. Well, I am looking forward to the fall and the winter, if it's not a crazy snowy winter again. I've been busy in the garden and chasing the rabbits and squirrels away from my vegetables is like a full-time job. Thank goodness I haven't had any insect issues, but the rabbits and the squirrels amazingly love tomatoes and flowers and jalapeno pepper plants. So I've been very busy with that, and just, you know, just life. But like I said, hopefully I will be back on track now. I will be back before too terribly long to show you some other things that I've finished and to show you a few acquisitions. It's been so long now, I'm not going to show you everything, but maybe just a few of my favorites. And take it from there. Okay, friends, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you sticking with me, even though I've been MIA for the last 2.5 months. I am going to be better. I'm going to be better at making regular videos, because just letting it stockpile is more work than just getting the video made. So until next time, my friends, I wish you all very happy stitching. Bye for now.